I'm Megan Hamilton, and this is the Embracing Enchantment podcast. Our guest today is somebody I have followed for a while, and I am so excited. She's a professional tarot reader, mortality doula, and funeral celebrant. They love talking about all things tarot and death, and we will absolutely be speaking to those topics. Please welcome Sarah Berry. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going great. Thank you for inviting me to be on this with you.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for agreeing. I actually have no idea. You know how sometimes you just start following somebody? I have really enjoyed watching, what you've shared through especially the last few years of being a mortality doula and walking through a process and reading tarot and your take on the cards. And I've always been really curious to chat with you. So I'm so thrilled that you're here.
Yay.
And I'm sorry that you're having hot flashes.
I know. So I have to get my fan ready for this. So yeah, it's a ride. I think I don't know, because I practice Vipassana meditation. I'm used to observing sensations. It's just a sensation to observe, and I'm more curious about it than anything. So yeah.
Well, that's good. Does that actually help?
The fan or the sensation, aware of sensation?
No, the awareness of the sensations.
It does help because it means that I don't start freaking out about it as well as like, how long does this go for? What if I get it for like until I'm 70? My friends does, or it's just like, yeah, it's something that comes and goes, and yeah, perimenopause.
That sounds like a very positive and supportive way of managing hot flashes. I like to take a cold shower and extra estrogen.
Ah, nice. Yay. Yeah. So now I'm managing with supplements and my fan and awareness of sensation.
Perfect.
But I'll see how I go as time moves forward. This time next year I could go, I have to take all the things. I'm no longer coping.
Yeah. Give it to me. Give it to me. Yes, I was actually amazed instantly. The first night that I put the estrogen gel on my arm, I did not sweat through the bed. Wow. And it was the greatest relief I had in quite a while. Okay. Anyways, okay. So I'm going to pull a card. I chatted with Sarah ahead of time to, as I always do with guests, just to make sure that works. And then they are going to give their take as well after I mention mine. Okay. So we're just going to pull a card for the collective, see what wants to come up, see what themes want to come through. And I've been pulling the Tower a lot lately.
Yeah, same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ever hear Rachel Pollack talk about how she and other tarot readers were chatting? This is like maybe a couple months before 9/11, and everybody was pulling the Tower all the time, and they were just. Have you heard that story?
Yeah. When I went to the UK Tarot Conference in 2018, she was presenting and she told that story, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. And intense.
So amazing.
Yeah.
And you don't always, very intense. I mean, for me, sometimes the Tower is just like, I'm working on something and I just have to like start over. I have to take it all apart and start over. That's sometimes what the Tower will mean for me.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's something much, much more substantive. Okay. Let's see what wants to come through. Queen of Swords. I think this is such an interesting card to get at this particular point in time. I've been talking a lot about how witches are going to take down the patriarchy. And I mean that in the sense that empowered people are the ones, when people have been disempowered and they find a way to empowerment, through witchcraft, I think,
Yeah.
then it almost becomes an unstoppable force. And so if we're looking at the cut ropes at the Queen's wrists, that to me speaks of creating your own empowerment,
Yeah.
and moving through towards sort of taking down whatever or doing what needs to be done, essentially. But obviously we think about the cycles and the transformation noted by her butterfly crown and the butterflies and the moon cycles on her throne. With swords, I often think of, we're doing clear communication. Like there's no time for bullshit. We are speaking truthfully. We are saying what needs to be said, even if it's pointy and difficult. And we are creating our own freedom because we know that nobody's going to give it to us.
Yeah.
And then, what's on the other side of that? If we're looking for new ways of organizing, which we kind of have to, then we know that it will likely start with the matriarchy or new way of bringing community-centered, people first,
Yes.
ways of being together. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yes, everything that you said, I think that. And I love when you said we can take down the patriarchy, because I've got just here, right here, is this little bag. It says drink tea and smash the patriarchy. And inside it, this is a beautiful pencil case or tarot deck case that's made by Marley Miles. She's an amazing artist in Australia, up northern New South Wales. And so I love her work. So I always like to get her things when she's making them. But yes, I am drinking tea, my fog lifter tea, and smashing the patriarchy with you. And Queen of Swords is totally it's like the perimeter card for sure. Just more likely to speak a lot more straight. It's like, I have no fucks for this. Come on, it's like, let's just go. And I think as a collective energy, it's no matter where we are in whatever cycle, whatever our hormones are doing, as we've been speaking about already, that there is this opportunity to, bring that clarity through. And I would love for there to be a world where young people, young women in particular, non-binary people, not having to, I know that they get to access that energy earlier in their lives rather than, here it comes with perimenopause once you get to your 40s and 50s onwards. And yeah, I know a lot of that comes with confidence and, strength and all of that. But I guess that call to bring in the matriarchy where children are protected and, encouraged to, could be safe in the world, that they can grow into strong humans that access their power and potency sooner rather than having it smothered by the authoritative figures in their world. So, yeah, Queen of Swords, a collective energy to make sure that we, perhaps those who are starting to access that strength, can help remove the barriers for those who don't have access to that strength in themselves yet, precisely because the systems that hold us bound to these particular, gender specifications and, all the things that can really just get in the way of living life and being clear and truthful. Yeah.
I love it. You really hit it there with the idea of it's not just us setting ourselves free. It's making sure that everyone else is, right? It's using your sword for everybody, not just yourself. And that's exactly the way forward.
Yeah.
It also, you bringing up the children and thinking that if we truly are getting to the no fucks left to give point in our lives earlier, then that also means that the children have access to figures who embody that kind of energy earlier in their lives too, right? So we know that when we see examples and we grow up with examples, we're much more likely to be able to tap into that sooner. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not to say that every teen wants to be like their mom, because let me tell you, that is not the way it is in my house right now. But one day I'm sure of it. I'm wondering, can you tell us a little bit about what a mortality doula is and
Mm.
how you came to the practice?
Okay, so a mortality doula is another way of describing an end-of-life doula or death doula. I guess there's a nuanced difference, but I don't mind if people call me death doula or end-of-life doula either, because it just helps get the point across. But a mortality doula, I started using that word because it more accurately describes how I work, in that often my clients, I meet with them long before they actually die.
Mm.
So like with my friend Annie, 3.5 years I was her doula for before she died. And so, I think all the clients I have at the moment are early in their diagnoses, and some of those diagnoses aren't even terminal, but they're life changing and life limiting. So as a doula, and every doula will work differently depending on what their previous life and work experience has been and what their preference is for showing up for people. So a palliative care nurse will show up in a certain way with clients that I won't, because I'm not well versed in the medical system in the same way that they are. And I can still accompany people to appointments, for example, but they might know the certain questions to ask because they've been right there in ER and knowing what happens in that particular space. But for me, as the mortality doula, I'm talking with people about their mortality because I've got experience. I used to work in a funeral home where I was a funeral director, and I used to work a lot in the mortuary as well, building that role alongside a mortician. And I do have just a lot of experience. I know what happens behind the scenes, and so I can help them. I can ask them questions to help them make decisions about their own end of life care and where they'd like to go or what they'd like to happen. Is talking about things like cremation or burial or human composting if it's available. Where you are, it's not in Australia, and just getting things in order. And also, really, for a lot of my clients, they just say it's just so good to be able to talk about this without someone freaking out. And so a mortality doula is often
Yeah.
the person who's
Mm-hmm.
comfortable to talk about death, who's not going to say, oh, because if I am the person who has this really limiting diagnosis and I might die, very soon, I want to be able to talk about things with my partner. But if my partner I know that she would talk to me about this, but they might go, oof, because it's not just about me, what I've got to talk about. They've got to be faced with the reality that there'll be a time, and quite an extended time, where I'm just not going to be there. So they've got to face, everything's coming in. But for me, as the doula in the professional role, I can just listen. I'm not also freaking out about, I might think, oh, I'm going to miss this person. I can still have grief and sadness about that, but it's different for me. And my role is to help them feel a lot more comfortable talking about what they need to talk about, and then help them then have those conversations with the people closest to them so that they feel more supported in that whole process by the community, not just one person being the doula.
So you mentioned being the director of a funeral home. Was that kind of the way into this practice? Did you take a program? Like, how did you come into this?
Yeah, so no, the funeral directing was just something that kind of added on because I was in that business, and it was a very young business at that time, and so there was a lot of wearing many hats. But I first really stepped into this work and did what I'd say was doula work, although I didn't call it that at the time, was in 2005. I started volunteering once a week at Sacred Heart Hospice, which is part of St Vincent's Hospital in Sydney, and there's a specific hospice just across the road from the main hospital. And so I would go there every week, except for when I was away, and I did that for 4 years. And it was that process of walking the wards and companioning people. Every volunteer would be doing something different. I was one of the younger ones. I was 28 when I started, and I think there was another person around my age, but on a different day to me, and some people in their 40s, and but then it was mostly retirees after that. And so it was this lovely intergenerational connection of me being shown the ropes by one of the long-term volunteers, and I'd walk around with another volunteer for, I think, the first month, and then they just, trusted me to go and approach people in my own way. Some of the volunteers would like do errands and change the flowers and do a bit of laundry for the patients, and I just found that, because I'm a tarot reader and I'm just all about having conversations with people, that I was just really comfortable sitting down and having conversations with people. And it was there that I really learned how to work that particular aspect of my intuition, trying to judge, does this person want me here or not? Because if they're unconscious, I don't know, or if they can no longer talk, I don't know. But then I slowly but surely got over that fear, and just because it's coming to my mind, because it was this really profound moment where there was a woman who she was about 10 years older than me, and I'd been chatting with her every week for about a month. And the last time I saw her, she could no longer speak, and she was lying flat, and she had the rails up on the side, because I think she'd been trying to roll out of bed. And I was standing there, and I just felt so profoundly unsure. It's like, what if she doesn't want me here? Like, she can't talk, and here we are in this busy ward, and she's looking at. And I remember I was holding onto the rail, wondering, should I stay or should I go? And then two things happened all in this one moment. She pushed her knee underneath my hand, and then one of the cleaning staff they were amazing. They'd get very involved they'd be mopping while chatting to the patients. And it was a very, making them more as uplifting an atmosphere as they could. She pushed a chair behind me, so that reflex thing when it hits the back of my knees, and I just sat down with my hand on her knee. And then we just looked at each other and just, were like that. I don't know how long we were like that for. And she did die later that day. I wasn't there when she died. So I think, it's that training that really set me up. And then I just started attracting tarot clients who are going through grief, and who someone is dying, or, their care, or they themselves are dying, and amongst everything else. And then doing workshops about death here and there. And then in 2020, I did do an intensive online training. So it was lockdown, with Preparing the Way. It's this doula program in Australia. There's several here in Australia, and did that, and got this job working at this funeral home. But I really stepped into the mortuary first, and that's what really defined my practice in that way. So it's several layers as to how I got into this work, but that's pretty much it.
Do you find with your clients, when you're in the role of doula, does tarot ever play a role as well?
Yeah, it does if they want it. Not everyone does. Or does it, or is not necessarily necessary. Sometimes my doula clients might come just for a reading. So we're not calling it a doula session. They're just coming because they just want tarot the whole way. Or we'll be discussing something in a doula session. And the questions they're asking, I'm like, do you want me to pull a card for this? Because there's a choice coming in, and they just wanted to get a feel for the different ways. And so they're like, let's pull a card for that. I did pull some cards every now and then for Annie, just in the final month of her life, and just a card. I pulled this card for you, and then I just send a little audio recording via WhatsApp, and she'd get that, and it would so there is room for that, and like in the way that we started this chat with each other with the tarot card, there is someone that I do just pull a card at the beginning. We look at it, we consider it, but then we just talk about other things, and it's not so much about the tarot reading, but it's just helping us land and get clear about the kind of storytelling that's going to be accessed today.
That's one of the things I love so much about tarot, is it can be used in so many different ways, right? Opening up a conversation, for example, or in this case, opening up a podcast, or even, I use it with coaching sometimes, and it's like, we'll get to a point in the conversation where, as you say, there's a choice, or we just want some clarity about next steps or what to do. And I don't know about you, but it doesn't always give you the most clear answer. Instead, it gives you things to think about so you get to the answer in your own way, which means you get to embody it a little bit more than just like being told what to do. But I love how flexible it can be for that reason. I love that it's there as an option for the folks you're working with. I kept thinking to myself that I should mention for those who don't know, when Sarah's talking about Annie, they're talking about, yeah, I know. I mean, I'm like, yes, of course.
Doesn't everyone know about
somebody who, if you don't, you should. And you can go to Sarah's Instagram to, that's funny. Something just made a loud noise in here and I don't know what it was, but maybe that was Annie who's just saying like, yes, go learn about me. If you go to Sarah's Instagram, you can see lots of stuff about sort of walking Annie through a terminal diagnosis to her end. And do you call it an end? What do you call it?
Yeah, end, death, final breath. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They all work. But what I loved too was Annie had this huge party that I can't remember if you had a name for it, but it was where everybody got to go and celebrate and kind of do the eulogy for her while she was still alive.
Yes.
Can you walk us through how that went?
Yeah, for sure. And what I want to say also about Annie is that it was very much the community that held her. Like I was in role as doula, but I just really feel like everyone really stepped in and her partner was she was really holding so much care and devotion and making sure that Annie's life was as comfortable as possible, particularly because she lived with a lot of pain. So her living wake, it's calling her living wake, but she call it her ultimate celebration. Like it's the ultimate party that she's going to be having. And she handpicked a few friends just that she knew had some event experience and just wanted to help and were available to help. And we'd all meet via Zoom, fairly regularly in the months leading up. And there was spreadsheets and people who were good with spreadsheets took care of that. But everyone knew what to do, and that Annie was letting people know she wanted merch. So she'd call up a friend and say, hey, I want merch. I want zines. And so there were zines about Annie, and there was a zine that Annie had done about a beautiful zine about the DIY house that she and her partner and family built with friends and community. And yeah, so there's just a lot of that. There were drinks, there were shrubs made by her friend Jenna Pyewackett, who's got an amazing small business called Pyewackett Traditionals. I'm not sure if they ship overseas, but it's good if you're in Australia. And so all her, she makes these amazing tonics, but also these amazing shrubs. And so these lovely, like they're kind of like a cordial if you don't know what shrubs are. And so all these beautiful non-alcoholic drinks because Annie had stopped drinking. There was all the amazing food because her partner Genevieve's an amazing baker and cook. And so there was just, so much food. And, friends were instructed with, oh, can you make this food? This is Annie. So it was all Annie's favorite foods. And then we just gathered, and it was really the structure of a funeral ceremony in that there's a beginning, I'm the celebrant, there's an opening song, but Annie's just sitting there on her throne and like, to Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper. And it was just like this amazing magical space full of colour. And there were people who had said ahead of time they wanted to speak, so they all got up and spoke. And then there was an open floor and just so many people wanted to get up. And then we finished with, although several songs, because several friends have already had written songs for Annie, over the years anyway. And they were so beautiful. But the final song was Let It Go from Frozen. Of course, that was like Annie's song that just spoke so strongly. I know. And everyone's like, do we need to sing this song again? It's like, yeah, we're singing it. Because Annie would want it. And it was so poignant because we played it at her funeral and also at her memorial. But, hearing some of the lyrics more at the funeral, like that perfect girl is gone, and and just let it go, be one with the wind and sky. So it's I love how cartoons can really hold so much magic and profoundness.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that
that's
was
so
the
funny.
experience.
Yeah.
And we also decorated her coffin as well. And she made a
Mm.
decision because I only wanted everyone to feel comfortable. So it was out in the veranda. So for people who didn't want to participate and have a relationship with her coffin, didn't have to. But by the end, I think most people had gone out, and I've got all these amazing photos and videos of people just drawing and painting and gluing pom-poms on. It was the most bedazzled coffin that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I can imagine that, if you haven't had a lot of experience with death and dying, and so you haven't had a chance in real time to work out your feelings around it or your thoughts around it, I can
Mm.
imagine that it might be kind of overwhelming to think about, decorating somebody's coffin.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, what a wonderful opportunity to be able to work out some of those feelings in an environment that celebrated, the life, instead of feeling scared about dying. Do you
I
have
just
medically assisted deaths in Australia?
Yeah, we do. We call it voluntary assisted dying here. That's the legal name for it. I just wanted to briefly say one thing about the living wakes. For that living wake for Annie, every single person there, including myself, it was our first time being involved in one. And so I just just letting everyone know that you can all be complete newbies and bring something together that's really spectacular. So don't think, oh, I need to have someone experience. Like, no, you don't. Just do it. Um, but yes, we do have voluntary assisted dying. That's the method that Annie chose to die with, and it was fairly new. So became legally accessible in November of 2023 in New South Wales. It had been legally accessible in other states in Australia at that point, and yeah, so it was very early days. So she died with voluntary assisted dying within the 8 to 10 months actually of that being available.
We have it here, and it's relatively new, but I know lots of folks who have whose parents have participated in it. I know somebody who is an administrator of it, and it just feels like it feels like the right direction in terms of getting a say in how you'd like things to go and not having to suffer for longer than you need to.
I think and I know that I did do an online workshop, or very brief one, that I wasn't fully awake for because of the time difference, that was about MA, I think it's MAID in Canada. Medically assisted dying. And
Yeah,
it does
made.
seem like there are differences. Like, I think it's a bit looser. The laws are very strict in Australia around it. And so here you can only access if you've been given a diagnosis that you're not likely to be alive in 6 months' time, or 12 months if you've got motor neuron disease.
Oh.
Yeah, but I don't think it's that strict. It's certainly not that strict in other places like Switzerland, and it's not that strict as strict in Canada.
Right, right. And of course, now we're seeing another side of things politically, where there's a whole other conversation where a lot of unhoused folks, or folks who have really debilitating mental illness and who are also unhoused, are being offered that, especially if they have pretty unmanageable mental health issues, which is problematic.
Highly
In
highly problematic. Hey, and I think before it was legal in Australia, I did, and when it was becoming legalized in Victoria, and I remember seeing an activist who gets around in a wheelchair, talking about, because she was opposed to the bill, because she said, I'm paraphrasing hugely here, but basically it was saying, I am not disabled, this system is disabled, and she was like doing this talk at the bottom of these stairs. She couldn't get in to the building to give her, her opinion, because it was there was no wheelchair access. And it's like, why are they making it easy for me to die, but impossible for me to live? And so that's like why it's like, no, the issue here that should be invested into helping, break down these systems, why are these people unhoused, and why these people, why is the 1% not being taxed accordingly so that wealth can be distributed to the community so everyone has an opportunity to have a more viable living experience, and even joyful one. So yeah, that's I can see how that's very problematic, what's happening in your parts at the moment.
Yeah. I feel like it's probably the next stage in the conversation of, okay, well, we start here, and then you don't always know what's going to come up once you start something. It feels like a kind of, I don't want to say necessary, but something you might assume would be the next step, and then hopefully we get it right, and we're able to clarify the rules a little bit further, so that and also use the information for good, right? To say, actually, this is a problem, and what can we do about it, and how can we fix it? So this is not the only option for people is being offered death.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2026 having these conversations, I guess.
Yeah.
So how did you get into tarot then?
Okay. So, I actually kind of find it funny that, as someone who's psychic, been aware of it, from an early age, and, then realizing that not many people were actually observing the world in the same way I was, and go, oh, okay. So I started to mask it to a certain degree. But for this being my career, I just kind of fell into it in a way. So I was in my early 20s. I had just come out of some experiences that were really not great, and I had really wanted to go, right, I have to trust my intuition now. I actually follow it, because I was ignoring it, and all this fuckery was happening. So now I've just got to, step what other people think for me in my life. I'm going to take charge of it through trusting my own intuition. And when things just started happening, I moved into a share house where one of the women was attending these meditation classes. And so I started going along, and it was different to the kind of meditation I practice now, which is Vipassana. And this was it was like goddess and goddess circle, kind of moon circle kind of vibes, witchy vibes. And it was a really great basis for what came next in my life and career. And tarot cards be brought out at the end of it sometimes. And so I was curious about them, but I'd had a few readings before, but I'd never been like, oh, wow, tarot, this is amazing. And then I was finishing my fine arts degree, and I was working in a video store, and I was just thinking, oh, a bit bored. Yeah, and I just said to the person facilitating the classes, hey, when you next do your tarot workshop, I want to do it. And then a few months later, she said that one was coming up. And I said, oh, look, I can't afford it right now. And she said, look, just come and pay me when you can, because there's only 2 other people. There needs to be at least 3. So I went, and one of them dropped out. There was just 2 of us after all. But the way that it was taught, very intuitive, without the books, that's what I was struggling with. My sister had given me a tarot deck in 2001. I remember her coming up the stairs, and she handed me the Rider-Waite-Smith. And she said, happy birthday, sis. You can become a professional tarot reader. And sorry, my dog Bally's here, and she just went at that. She makes little amplification sounds while she sleeps. And I just thought that was, I'll become a professional tarot reader, even though I have not yet learned how to read the cards. And I had a real aversion to reading by, just reading about it. And so after trying to read the book, realizing how much there was to learn, I flung the book at the wall and said very dramatically, I'm never going to become a professional tarot reader. And then I forgot about it. But then when I started doing this workshop, it was all happening in the 10-minute cycle. Yes. And then it was classic, like early 20s kind of vibe. And then I did the workshop, and it was taught intuitively, and I felt I could wrap my head around it now, because I was working in a visual language rather than a written one. And I just got obsessed with it. And then I just always have a tarot deck on me and I would just be pulling it out. I just gave so many free tarot readings to friends and family, and they just couldn't have any conversation with me. Say, oh, should I pull a card on that for you? And so I really got my experience, a lot of experience very quickly. So I made myself very available to learning through doing readings for other people. And then after a while, they just started saying, hey, you should go professional. You're good, you know? And I'm like, oh, okay, no, I can't do it. And then I went for a tarot reading that I really didn't enjoy. But it was perfect though, because as I walked across the threshold and walking out of the shop, I told myself I can at least do better than that. And then I rang a local metaphysical store that afternoon, saw the manager the next day, gave her a tarot reading, got the job. So that's how I got in.
Oh, so neat. And the book, I mean, yes. I think when somebody finally realizes that they can have the permission to just allow their relationship to cards be what the expert is in that particular reading, it's kind of like the Queen of Swords. It's kind of liberating, isn't it? And it lets you really develop your own relationship. And so, you know, you mentioned that you're psychic, and so when you're reading cards, how does the like, do your psychic abilities inform your intuition? Is it all the same? Who really knows what it is? It just kind of comes and that's what we go with it. Is that do the cards facilitate like visions or things you need to say? Like, how does it all interweave with each other?
Yeah, okay. So for me, I can't separate it out. Like, they all can come together, that when I'm talking, it is the cards that are, you know, they're like these cue cards that are, you know, they've got their own message, and there's something, sometimes it's more about the cards, and because it's just so interesting, the imagery, or someone say, oh my God, that looks like my ex, or whatever. Like, there's like those things that happen specifically because they're working with the cards. But it all just comes in at the same time. So everything that I'm saying is based on how I'm feeling as I'm sitting with people. And I strive to live without belief systems wherever possible. And so I'm not ever going to name it, oh, this is the guides, or this is the archangel, or this is anything like that. Not to discredit that for people that feel comfortable with that language. It just doesn't work for me, doesn't suit me, and it doesn't feel fully honoring of the fullness of all that energy can be, and that I am an unenlightened human being who, how could I possibly know what is totally real and totally not? So so for me, it's just feeling the energy, and sometimes a way of describing it's like there's this rush of energy moving across the table, and I'm talking a bit more quickly usually, and I'm just trying to talk to as much that I can feel as possible. And because I've got a very strong imagination, so I tend to trust my visuals less, but I do trust my feelings more. And I think also because, you know, the meditation is all about observing sensations, that it's almost like, because I'm aware, so, that sensation is for me. I was like, oh, that's an unusual sensation. I don't think that's for me. So I'm able to hand that to the other person rather than keeping it for myself.
Yeah.
We're just kind of talking about, it's like, how do we talk about this in a way that can sound kind of logical? I don't think we can.
No. I know, it's true. And most of the time I find, you know, everybody has their own way of coming back to, like, I don't know how I know, but I just do. And once I trust it, it comes more strongly. Right?
Yeah.
Like, once I start trusting that, so as you're saying, because you have, you know, a really vibrant imagination, I'm taking this a step further, but I'm assuming that's you saying, I'm not sure if I'm just making this up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So instead you're going to go with the sensations, which you've been developing through the meditation practice that you were talking about. And then for me, I might say sometimes I just have this very strong urge to say something, and I'll think to myself, well, don't say that. That's stupid. And then it'll keep coming back. And I just go, okay, I don't know why I have to say this, but this. And 75 or 80% of the time, the person's like, oh my God, that's this, or, and you just think, oh, okay. I didn't really know why. And actually that came up in a episode a few weeks ago. Yeah. With, Swales, the friendly green witch, she was on talking about how she gets those similar sensations when she's doing Reiki. She doesn't know why. She just has this strong urge to say it, and she just, mentions it, and then the other person has a response to it. And it's interesting too, because when you allow yourself to be the conduit, you don't really know why you're saying what you're saying or why it's coming to you, right? Like or maybe you do, right? But it does end up having such a meaningfulness to the other person.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think a lot of it, and I remember this particularly my early days of tarot, like I'd be just saying, because again, it's that thing is like, I'm just going to say this thing. And so I'd be saying it. And sometimes I'd just be talking, but I was, lucky that every now and then I just have this really helpful, because everyone was older than me back then, really helpful, motherly type, just going, I know it doesn't make sense to you, but it makes sense to me. So just keep going. Oh, okay. I'm saying all these things. And I do remember once just, again, very early on, thinking, like having urges to say things, but thinking, no, that is just bonkers. I'm not going to say that. And so I don't. And then wishing that I had said it, because in the context of the reading, they share things. Oh, I should have said that thing, but now I can't say it because it's like, yeah, I've already told you. And I did just on the train ride in this particular day that I was going to say, no matter what came into my head, no matter how weird it is. And then I was sitting there with this lovely woman, old enough to be my grandmother, and I was I had this feeling to tell her that the energy of the cows are really good for her right now. And I was like, no way can I say that. But then I remembered my oath to myself. So I said, oh, this is going to sound really weird, but the energy of the cows are really good for you right now. And, and she just burst out laughing and said, oh, Sarah, my husband and I bought 100 cows yesterday. And I've never had an experience like that again, but it was more like that affirmation, just go with it, walking, kind of unleash myself from the logic and just say it, knowing that sometimes people thinking, oh, what's Sarah going on about? And that it might make sense later. And people have said that sometimes, that they said, oh yeah, I thought you were having a bit of an off day. But then I, 2 weeks later, I was listening to the recording. I'm like, Sarah wasn't having an off day.
No, I needed, that needed to be on the recording for me for later. Totally. Yeah. I like to do year ahead readings, usually at the beginning of the year. And I love, June, somebody gets in touch and said, how did you know? Like, this is so spot on. And I'm like, I literally had no idea what I was talking about. I mean, in the sense, I do, but I don't know what it looks like on your end. Like, all I can say is what's coming to me and what's going to come out of my mouth, and I'm ever pleased that it has is helpful, but I don't often feel completely responsible for it, if that makes sense, because it's like I feel truly like I was just a vessel. And I've been taking a Reiki program, and it's a similar thing. It's like you're just the conduit, getting to observe it, which in a way seems, if I think about what I know of your work, it's you get to participate with other people. You get to facilitate, you get to be in partnerships and community, and offer support. And how does that affect you over time? You've got a lot of grief things that you deal with on the regular, and you come to have relationships with folks that will be passing on. How do you manage your own grief?
Yeah, how do I manage it? I will just say if the recording picks up any snoring sounds, my dog Valley is snoring right now.
Okay.
Um,
We love a snoring dog.
I sometimes say that in my reels, like, there's not some rando snoring in my office, it's just my dog. Um, but how Valley helps me with my grief. Like, she's just so beautiful, and she's just vibing, and she's actually very attentive to big emotions as well. And so, she looks at people a very concerned way. If me or my wife have hurt ourselves physically or just having a bit of a bum time, she's like, all right, well, I'm just gonna keep guard over you whilst you're lying on the floor, or she's very much like that. So, and grief walking with the dog has been really nice. It's like, just after Annie died, just went for a really long walk, and it's just like, oh, I'm just going to keep on walking. And we had this very, very long, long, long walk, and the dog was very exhausted by the end of it. I do have a therapist, so I do have that process. My meditation practice hasn't been as strong as it used to be, but it's still there, and that I can come back to the breath when I've got big emotions rising up, particularly if during when I'm celebrant at a funeral, and if I'm personally affected, like, by the grief, just because I knew this person really well, so I'm carrying a little bit more in myself, but I've got the professional hat on, so I'm holding it. But then Valley's snoring so loudly right now.
That I could hear.
And she's like running as well. She's like doing a little running after rabbits or something. Anyway. So speaking to a crowd of people who are actively crying, sobbing. Sometimes there'll be like lots of like loud sobbing sounds happening. Sometimes people are just sitting there like with tears running down their face and like just little quiet sniffs. Sometimes they might have their head in their hands. Like, there's a lot of different ways that grief is expressing itself, and it's all in the room, and I'm just like holding it. And so sometimes, like, in the, I'll just pause and just come back to the breath, and that just instantly calms that part of my mind down, so I'm not getting emotionally caught up in everything that's happening in the room. And I do remember, like, if there's someone that I know personally, like, really well, who's living, and they're in there and I can see them crying, I've just got to, like, I see them crying and then I quickly move along and don't look at them again, because that's going to knock me a bit. So yes, the meditation helps. Stretching my body helps. Riding my bike, walking in the bush. I live in Katoomba on Darug and Gundungurra land, the Blue Mountains, and in Sydney every week as well. So I sleep on Gadigal land in Sydney as well, a few nights a week for work. But just having these giant, amazing, ancient escarpments and mist and blue.
You mentioned mist.
Yes, I did.
You mentioned mist in the so I usually ahead of having guests, I have a little form that I have folks fill out just so I can orient myself to what they want to speak to. And I loved that you brought up mist in here. And was one of my questions, like, what is your connection to mist? Tell us about why you love it so much.
Well, I think it's always something that I've been wanting more of in my life, because my partner often wakes up before me, and so they'll often take the dog for a walk, although with perimenopause, I'm usually walking the dog with them. So sometimes they'll come back and say, oh, there was mist. Oh my God, I missed it. And then I had experience at school camp when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13, I don't know how old it was, but a young teen, and we were in these misty fields by the tents, doing levitation things. Anyway, I just remember having this really profound experience of all of a sudden.
Sounds pretty par for the course for 12.
That's what we're doing, and they were all lifting me up, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so high right now. And then they go and drop me, and I dropped like about a meter. So they had actually lifted me with their two little fingers up quite high, and it was all in this misty space. It was very magical. But when we moved to the mountains, it was in the summer, and I just had no idea that summer and mist in the mountains is a really big thing. And so we'd be driving up at night, there'd be this mist rolling in, and I don't know, there's something about when I'm walking through the mist, I guess it's all the negative ions, it's just all this moisture in the air, and you can barely see things, and people disappear and appear. And it just feels really rejuvenating. It really wakes me up, and I guess it's helpful for the perimenopause, and it's also just, I had no idea that it was this, that was the magical climactic condition that was missing in my life that I needed in order to feel just a lot happier and a lot more free. So yeah, mist.
Wow. 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 I spent several weeks in Edinburgh a long time ago, and yeah, I couldn't believe how much mist was there every morning. But I do find that it changes my energy, and it does feel like it's and I don't know if that's, like Macbeth and all of the different ways that we grew, the mists of Avalon even, and the like all of the different lore about mists. So there is a spookiness to it that you sort of automatically gives you like a prickly feeling, right? Or like a heightened sense of awareness. Certainly, there's that. But there is also something actually very energy shifting about experiencing mist.
Yeah.
And anyways, that's just, I love that. I love, we should all get to be with mist more,
I think so. And I think just what you said about
especially
that
now.
being spooky, it's because I think that now I'm thinking about how there's like different nuances of mist, and I don't know, just heard like in different cultures there might be like 100 different words for the type of snow that they're experiencing. And yeah, sometimes I've like gone out and go, yeah, the mist feels a bit like it's got stuff in it tonight, and it's like I might go
Right.
back inside. But other times like,
Right.
ooh, kind of walking around, and it's just really friendly and lovely.
I mean, it makes sense. Yes, in Canada, our Inuit cultures, our Inuit people are said to have, 100 words for snow.
Nice.
Yeah, really, really fun. Okay, well, listen, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm so glad I've got to learn about mist and mortality doula-ing, and the dog snoring in the background. One of the things that part of the reason I started this podcast a year and a half ago was because of, kind of what was starting to really show itself in terms of unraveling of the systems around us. And knowing that when we feel hopeful, that actually, I think I learned this concept from Jericho Mandiber, and I keep meaning to say, do you know
Yeah.
Jericho?
Yeah. I do. Because I'm not sure where they're living right now, but we hail from the same land. And I got out their Neo Tarot. It's actually sitting beside me, the other day, because I sometimes use it when I'm having a WhatsApp call to prop up with the Rider-Waite-Smith to prop up.
Oh, right.
And it's great. But then I've been like getting it out and like looking at the cards and just how beautiful that tarot deck is. So yeah, I do know them and their work. Yeah, they do amazing things. Yeah.
Yes. I think I think the concept of this was introduced to me maybe in their really older podcast. Anyways, it's the idea that when we are hopeful that change is possible, and there's so much research on this, then we are more likely to work towards change. If we believe that nothing can change, then meaning we don't have hope, then we are less likely to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so almost, in and of itself, the idea of remaining hopeful as a choice to make sure that the energy stays strong for working towards change. That's kind of where this podcast came from, because, you know, lots of different spiritual practices, especially witch adjacent and sort of more empowering spirituality, it allows us to really break free from these systems and all of our entanglements within them. So that was a really long way of saying, how do you stay hopeful these days with, I'm just gesturing to everything for those listening.
Yes. How do I stay hopeful? I make sure I'm staying in connection with community, that I'm spending time with my friends, so that I'm reminded that I'm not alone, that I'm in solidarity. Mm, The tarot can really help just get a feel for things.
Yeah.
Getting out into nature as well, because
Yes.
there's just something so huge and extraordinary about all of that. And yeah, I know the risks are real, and there is supreme danger, and there are extraordinary horrors going on in this very moment. And a lot of people have died in very violent ways whilst we've been sitting here together. And so, like, I'm aware of all of that, but I think I'm also aware that people are wanting to stay in connection with each other. And I think art is a really big thing of that, like people creating art together. It doesn't have to be like, you know, the very conservative ideas of what art is supposed to look like, that how people dress can be a form of art. And you know, there's ways we decorate spaces, just how we interact with people, that, you know, that you might wear that extraordinary multicolored coat just to do the shopping. Like, why do you need to wait for a party? Just like go for a walk down the main street in it. You know, just kind of inviting connection and joy is definitely a way in which I find hope still remains inside of me.
Oh, I love it.
Mm.
Yeah, four of us, friends, all perimenopausal, started a punk band called Hag recently.
Yay!
And it is one of the most profoundly joyful things that I'm doing in my life right now.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Yay.
it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Sarah, it's been really nice to talk to you, and I deeply appreciate you coming on and chatting with me, even though we're in different time zones. We're on different, it's a different date for you than it is for me. That's always my favorite thing about when I'm speaking to folks in Australia. There's the hemispherical, is that the word? Difference just feels like, yeah, see, it is possible. There is time travel. It is, you know, it doesn't have to be anything bananas. It can just be this. But thank you so much for coming. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I've really enjoyed this chat. Thank you so much.
You can find all of the information and takeaways from today's episode in the show notes or at embracingenchantment.com. Please subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review or a voice note. We love getting voice notes. You can find out more about Sarah and where to follow them in the show notes or at embracingenchantment.com. Make sure you're subscribed, because we have some exciting episodes coming up with a medium. I'm going to be talking about Reiki and so much more. Until then, here's to building an enchanted life.